Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Michael and Patty Show. I'm Michael.
And I'm Patty.
And it's a beautiful winter day in PEI. It's minus 17 Celsius today. And the interesting thing I find, Patty, is the first day at 0, it feels really, really cold. But once you get into winter, even though it's minus 15, minus 20, it doesn't seem cold anymore. And that's why we're out barbecuing in the shorts and T-shirts these days.
Not we. You may be doing that, but I definitely would not be out in my shorts and T-shirt.
Probably not, considering you're wearing a battery-operated heated vest.
Yes, I do love my vests, and this came from Costco, so it's one of the best gifts I would have gotten this past Christmas. I absolutely love it. And at this time of the year, despite there being no sun, it is definitely sunglasses needed because of all the white snow. The harbor is completely covered here at the Charlottetown Yacht Club, so you don't see any water today out there.
So let's get on with it here. We're going to get right into the Facebook group. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that. And the difference, you had a question, the difference between the various shores in PEI, north, south, east, west.
Yeah, so we had one of our followers the Facebook group is a private group. It is called Moving to Prince Edward Island from the Michael and Patty podcast. And it is a group if you're considering either buying or selling, whether Prince Edward Island should be considered on your map of a place to relocate to. It is a must join group, I guess is what I would say, because the information and all the knowledge between the information that I share on a daily basis. So 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, until we are caught up, we are featuring in sequential order a podcast with a snapshot summary of what you can expect. Tuesdays are Toolbox Tuesdays. Tuesdays I absolutely love. I keep a log of everything that's been posted. I spend a great deal of time making sure that I do my research and provide as much value and information resource to the members of the group. So if you are not a member yet of this group and you want a continuation of this podcast, I highly and strongly recommend you check out the Moving to Prince Edward Island, spelled completely out, from the Michael and Patty podcast. So one of the questions I had, Michael, this past week was the different shorelines on Prince Edward Island. What could you expect and what would you recommend? It was a Thoughtful Thursday question just put out to our members so that they could share why they preferred maybe the north or south. And that's usually how people break up the island. It's either the north shore or the south shore. But we do have an east shore and a west shore. So I decided it was a great opportunity to create a response that explains what experience you can expect to have based on the different shorelines. So I'm just going to go over it quickly here. Sorry, I'm just trying to get over still this cold that I had. So sometimes my voice sounds a little groggy. So what can you expect if you visit or live on the North Shore? So the North Shore I would describe as the infinity view. It feels more like the edge of the world facing the wide open Gulf. There also comes with a more raw experience. Many have commented over the years that why haven't I cut my hair off yet? Because for quite a few years there, I was doing property videos, and my hair was going pretty much at a 90 degree from the rest of my body because it can get pretty intense with the winds there. But some people like that raw experience of the elements. So if that's something that you're looking for, the North Shore is a definite must. You will experience white caps as far as the eye can see, white sand dunes, the jagged red cliffs that PEI is notoriously known for our beautiful scenery, the sounds of crashing waves, and the deep dark blue or turquoise waters you will find along that shoreline. Now, the South Shore, which has been described as having the warmest water temperature north of the Carolinas, during the changing tides, you'll experience either the water rolling into the island red rock or low tide, which is wonderful opportunities to collect treasures in the sand that wash ashore, Shallow sandy beaches, perfect for families with little ones to splash in the little tide pools. Clam digging, and this was something that was shared with me from an island family who has been here for generations, to use a toilet plunger, obviously clean, never used, to try to extract those clams out of the sand, which I thought was just such a cool little idea. Not something I've ever tried myself personally, but I believe that it does work just because of the mechanics behind it. The colored contrast along the shoreline is so vibrant. It's the greenest green you'll see, the reddest red with the cliffs, and the sky is just so blue. It's absolutely stunning along the south shoreline. So if you're looking for a picture from a vacation, I would strongly recommend perhaps visiting the South Shore to get that kind of image. The West Shore is more often called the wild side of the island. That's where you'll find a lot more of the wind energy landscapes that have the turbines, the wind turbines, lining the horizon in certain areas. North Cape reveals the longest natural rock reef in North America. They have stunning beaches. Once when I went out there in my first year or two, I was able to witness a property, like a horse owner, and he had his horses out and they were running the beach. Well, I didn't take a picture. I just was so mesmerized by the backdrop and what I was witnessing. It was so beautiful. I will forever have that image in my brain. So that's what you can expect typically along the West Shore. And now we have the East Shore. And the East Shore line, which is like Montague area, Surrey, feels more like the classic maritime experience with the quaint fishing harbors, the singing sand beach and Basin Head. If you get up early enough, you can watch the fishing boats leave out on the horizon. Now, early is about 3-4 in the morning is when those fishermen are up and going for their day to get that fresh catch of the day. And they return sometime around 11-12, which a lot of people will venture down to the harbor and see if they can buy fresh catches that they've collected while they were out on the open water. There's also views of seals out there. So if you're looking for just a vacation, hopefully this helps you understand what kind of experience maybe that you or your family are looking to have on PEI. There is something a little different all along all the shorelines. Anything, Michael, that you would add?
If I had to sum it up in a couple sentences, I would say that the North Shore is more ocean-like. You get the crashing waves, the colder water. You do have undercurrents. The South Shore, you're going to get the warmest waters north of the Carolinas, as they said, and Patty spoke of earlier. And you're going to have a view of something, may it be Nova Scotia, the Confederation Bridge, or New Brunswick. There's something you can see, whereas the complaint on the North Shore is you see absolutely nothing other than water. And if that's what you're looking for, that's great. And I would add to this that you do want to keep an eye on those banks, because I don't know about you, but you'll see these listings that have a picture of a beautiful sandy beach, may it be white or pink or red sand. Little beknownst to you that this is down a 110-foot cliff and you can't get to it without a helicopter or a hang glider. Have you seen that?
Yes, absolutely.
I had a client the other week looking at a piece of property, and he thought the beach was gorgeous. And then I told him, I said, that bank's probably 90 feet, and you're just not going to get to the beach. Not to mention the safety hazards of people falling over the sides.
Well, and if you have children, little ones, or even pets, yes, it is definitely something to keep in mind if you're looking to purchase a property on Prince Edward Island or even stay at a vacation rental property.
And the other thing I would mention, if you look at the map of PEI, you'll find the eastern side of the island, or as we refer to it as down east, is more populated than up west. And you're also closer to Charlottetown and the airport, whereas up west, you're closer to Summerside. And we do have the Sleman Park Airport, which is a private airport ex-military, which you can use for private airplanes, and you can land just about anything there.
Yes.
Good?
Good. I think
Let's move on to house builders misrepresenting an unfinished basement and wanting full price. I've been watching a couple listings that have been on the market for a year, maybe two. Has it been over 2 years?
Yeah, I think the one that I think you're talking about has been 2 years.
So this is a house that's brand new, they finished the main floor and the basement's completely unfinished. So what the builder is saying, what the pitch is Patty, here's a golden opportunity to finish the basement any way you want. And guess what? You're going to pay full price for the house just like that basement's finished. A word of caution, when you're looking at a house that has an unfinished basement, make sure you price out what it's going to cost to finish that basement. Just recently, we had a conversation with the first-time home buyer that was planning on doing a bunch of renovations, and one of them was just a simple installation of a floor, and he was ordered by the builder to pick up the trim that goes around the walls, and his mind was blown by the exponential cost. Just a simple thing like the footer board or trim around the flooring.
Yes, around the perimeter. And it is, building materials are costly. So if you are looking at a house, and again, if it is a new build for sure, and they're pitching it for that enticing excitement that you get to create whatever kind of layout that you want, but yet without realizing you're paying full price as if that basement has already been finished, price out the materials. It can get quite costly, and it's a little bit of an eye-opener.
Well, the labor as well, unless you're going to do the work yourself. If you're buying a house that has unfinished basement space, and this applies to older houses as well, it's just with older houses, there's a secondary caution in that if you have a house that's 50, 60 years old, like the one we discussed in the last episode, you may have problems with water infiltration or all kinds of other issues, and that's why it's never been finished. But with a new house, from what I found, the builder's just trying to make some more money, and they're trying to spin it like they're doing you some big favor that you have a half-finished house. So make sure you get probably between 1 and 3 quotes on finishing that basement completely before you make an offer on that house, and also make sure that it would comply with local laws in regards to putting nanny suites in and so forth.
Yeah, and again, we've discussed this on many previous episodes, do the reverse CMA, compare it to another property that does have the basement finished to make sure to protect how much you're looking to, purchase this property for based on what it's offered at on the market, to make sure that you're not overpaying, because the painful part of this whole situation and scenario is fast forward, whether it's a year, whether it's 5 years, and life circumstances have changed and you need to sell that. It is not a comfortable conversation to have to tell that particular property owner, well, you overpaid. And I'm sorry, I don't think too many realtors are going to admit this. They're just going to say it's just where the market is today. But maybe I should have advised you at that time, or did a little bit extra work as your buyer's agent to do a reverse CMA to let you know at that time, are you paying full price? Now, you may not care. Your agent may have informed you, because I know I've done this, especially during COVID. I'm letting you know you are paying a premium for this property. So if you do call me in the next couple of years, or even up to 5, and ask or need to sell the property, I may not have the best news for you depending on where the market is at that time.
And the other thing I find is you'll have a developer that's developing a new subdivision, and then they'll say, well, we're looking for $850 for the house, the basement's unfinished, but the lot's worth $300.
Yeah.
It's not worth $300. It's a number they've probably made up, unless you can edify this number or confirm with actual sales data that those lots are selling for $300. Just because the developer says it's worth $300 doesn't make it worth $300. It could be worth $75.
Yeah, and the other thing to be mindful of is, because we've had such a migration to PEI, which is a whole other topic, but just something, because it's all on this kind of the same idea. When you're buying into a property that would require the Island Regulatory Appeals Commission's approval because you're a non-island resident, a lot of little pocket community areas on the island now are becoming more densely populated with non-island residents. So if it is attracting a percentage of buyers from different provinces, whether it's Quebec or Alberta or BC or Ontario, that is going to come into play when you need to sell that property as well, because they try to ensure that there is no more than 25% off island ownership. And once it's past that 25 to 30%, it gets flagged. So just be mindful of that. Just something else while you're considering
But you're
properties.
talking about selling.
Selling down the road, which is what...
Yeah,
yes.
You're talking about getting IRAC approval.
Correct.
So if it's waterfront, you have to go through Island Regulatory Appeals Commission, which you can find out about on irac.pe.ca, Lands Protection button. And that will tell you everything about that. But basically what Patty's saying is you could buy into a community where it might be difficult to sell because a high populace or percentile of off-island non-residents, which is something else to consider for sure.
Yeah, especially if they're larger little pieces over the 5 acres, or you have a land holdings of a certain amount already. But just all these little items you need to consider if you have a property that could potentially be an IRAC applicable property down the road that was developed in a new build. Again, it sounds really cool to be able to say, I own over 5 acres. It's a brand new home. Just know if you're in these certain little pocket communities on the water, or even, on the water, close to water view, they tend to attract non-island residents. And that's usually who ends up paying the premium for these prices.
And IRAC would apply to anything over 165 feet of waterfront and 5 acres. Moving along here, just the other day, Patty popped up on my screen a new find of a waterfront house. And she said, oh, isn't this interesting? I think the house was around 1.3, 1.4, and I looked at it, and right away I thought, you know what this is? This is a house that somebody built, and they're selling it because it's tired and it needs everything. It had the old 1960s, 1970 kitchen cabinets. The flooring was original. It was a Cape Cod. To me, it looked like they were selling because they're just going to build something else, which at that time, I do what I always do. Number one, it was in a B grade neighborhood, in my opinion. I compared it against an A-grade neighborhood, and I thought this house probably wouldn't sell for this even in that A-grade neighborhood. And the second thing is, I always take the house and the lot and I separate them. And I said, if I was to buy a lot and I was to build this house brand spanking new, complete with a finished basement, I can probably build that house brand new for about the same amount of money that they're trying to sell this 30 or 40-year-old house in a B-grade location at an A-plus price. Make sense?
Absolutely. And that ties into what I was just saying as well, because this would be an IRAC applicable property because it has over 165 feet of frontage, and it is in an area that does attract a lot of non-island residents and seasonal non-island residents in around these little shoreline communities. It was an interesting property, and which is why I shared it. Not to say that the dollar, they have dropped from 2025 to 2026 now. They've dropped $100,000. And my guess is if you watch it for the next few years, you might end up seeing another 100,000 and then another 100,000. So until they reach where the market says, hey, we can support the number on this property, and then, which happens all the time.
There's been a number of other houses in this B-grade location that have tested the market with this 1.3, 1.4 dream price, and none of them have sold.
Over $1 million in this area, which seems to be, and you and I have laughed about this so many times, Michael, where everyone on PEI right now seems to think their property's worth $1 million. Now, Michael, you always, so I send you that, and then you send me what you can get in different communities.
I'll send you something I get in Toronto for the same price in an area that's going to appreciate quicker. I'm going to be able to sell it in minutes if I need to get out, so it has a higher level of liquidity. I'm not sitting on it for 2 or 3 years like this guy. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at it as a professional investor. I know a lot of people say, I just want it to be my forever home, blah, blah, blah. Life circumstances change, and if we had $1 for every time someone told it was their forever home, and now they're listing it because they're going through a divorce or ran out of money, became homesick, want to live with the kids in Alberta, we'd have a lot of pennies or a lot of dollars.
Yes, we definitely would.
keep those things in mind. The other thing is, I sold a house and it failed because of the home inspection, and basically this was a pretty new house. The basement was ICF, so insulated styrofoam foundation. So basically cement surrounded with styrofoam, which is a great way to go, but it's a crawl space and it has a gravel floor. And what the home inspector said is he said the basement's a little wet. Well, it probably is going to be because the water table in that area is a little high, plus it's close to the shore. What they didn't do on this house is they didn't put a Humidex in. So this is a device that straps on the wall. It sucks the cold air off the floor, shoots it out through a hole in the wall. Within 3 to 4 hours, it will magically transform this basement into a nice, cozy crawl space. The purchaser thought he could use a dehumidifier. That's going to do absolutely nothing in this space. A Humidex is what you want. That might be a brand name, but it's basically a box that bolts to the side of the wall. They're about $800. They have a fan and they work very simply, and they just remove the cold air, and you'll find that crawl space you could probably heat with a light bulb once you get that Humidex installed.
And if I could just say, Michael, because I don't like when people say what you just said, and that is the home inspection failed. There is no failed.
It failed in the purchaser's mind.
That's right.
And there is no way that we could educate this purchaser on the fact that this could easily be resolved for next to nothing, because he was set in stone that this was a huge problem. And you can't talk people out of that. You have a nervous Nelly that sees this as the end of the world, then there's no reversing that course.
So for our listeners,
get a pre-inspection done.
Okay, that's one, yes. But there is no pass or fail. It is, am I, based on this home inspection report that now I have in front of me that is completely stressing and overwhelming me, because they can be anywhere from 40 to 50 pages up to 100 pages. And it is overwhelming. It is, are you in a financial position or in a position to take on the work that is required to maybe bring this property to a higher standard? It doesn't mean it fails if it doesn't, but the buyer does have the right to say, wait a minute, home inspection came back and said there's mold in the attic. I have a little one, or I personally have, a sensitivity. I can't live in that house. That makes complete sense. Or if the list of to-dos, because the current property owner has deferred a lot of maintenance and now they just want to unload this property, they don't want, they're stressed probably over how much work, in some cases they're not always aware, but they want to unload this property and move on and feel a little lighter. And if that is the case, yes, you have the right, as per our clauses on Prince Edward Island, to be able to say, as a result of the home inspection, I will not be moving forward with this purchase. But it doesn't mean it necessarily fails, and you don't have to share that report either with the seller. That report belongs to the buyer. As per our rules and the way it's written here, you don't even necessarily have to share why you want out of the contract from the home inspection report. You should do your home inspection. You should show good faith that you went ahead and you tried your best to satisfy that condition. But if you feel the work, now this particular situation, Michael, that you're talking about with the Humidex, that would have been a real easy solution to fix that. But if that buyer just, again, maybe nervous Nelly, just went, this is stressing me out and I don't want a wet basement or the concerns of that, then they need to find something else.
In this particular situation, this is a great example why I'm a huge advocate of doing a home inspection preemptively, because something like this could have been found out prior to putting it on the market. The situation could have been alleviated, so it wouldn't have been a red flag, and this property would have sold for a pretty good dollar, actually.
Yeah, and for the sake of the seller, maybe paying the $800 prior to listing it, just in case this is an issue for somebody else, they could have missed out on hundreds of thousands of dollars, all for the sake of putting out $1,000 before they listed it and entered into a contractual agreement with the potential buyer.
Well, home inspection today is what, $450 to 750,
758, yes.
depending on who you hire, because some of them do more than others. The point being is it's like buying a used car. You got two used cars that are identical. One's an as is, where is, and the other one says it's had a 125-point mechanical check. Which one are you more inclined to buy? Obviously, the one that's pre-inspected, and it's the same with homes, and that's why a lot of homes I list, I'll actually pay for the home inspection because I know it's going to save a lot of problems. And the other thing is all these contracts usually are contingent on the home inspection. So you're sitting around for a week or two sometimes and waiting for the home inspection to be done. Whereas if it was just pre-inspected, most people will just look at the inspection and move ahead. I haven't seen too many people that will do a second inspection, although you do come across them. But for the most part, they'll accept it as a genuine effort to have an unbiased inspection performed.
Most people do, but I always get those buyer clients that think there's some sort of
Get all paranoid.
conspiracy between the seller and the home inspector.
They paid off the home inspector.
Exactly.
No, the home inspector is not going to jeopardize their well-being, their business, and their reputation over one biased, crooked home inspection.
Yes, no, but the home inspector is not held liable or responsible for what they disclosed in that report to somebody else. That report, if it was done for the seller, the home inspector is liable to that seller. So if the seller does share that report with another buyer, that buyer can't go back to the home inspector and say, you reported this, you reported that, and try to sue them or go after them from a legal standpoint. The contract is, yes, between the home inspector and whoever purchased the home inspection initially. However, please know that the home inspector isn't going to sit there and ruin their reputation by, skewing the data or hiding things or, misrepresenting the property. They do a good report. And if I'm paying for the home inspection as part of my service for my seller client, I want a good report because I want to help my seller avoid any surprises down the road so that we can get ahead of them.
And I noticed you said that some of the home inspectors, if you did have a number of issues that you resolved, they would modify the home inspection to reflect those improvements or resolutions.
As long as it's done within a period of time, a home inspector isn't going to come back 6 months later and just do up a quick revision. There's a certain time period, and you'd have to speak with your home inspector if you are a seller looking to do this. What is your timeline that I have to get this work done so that you can update the repair list for me?
And then I noticed a few of the home inspectors years ago, I know Housemaster was doing this. I don't even know if we have Housemaster on the island anymore.
I don't think so.
They used to have a pre-inspected sign they would put on the for sale sign, which was kind of a nice touch.
I actually like that idea, Michael.
Well, you go ahead and use it and just give me a $1 royalty every time you put one of those signs up. Let's talk about a new agent was curious why every lot in this new subdivision had the same PID number. As we've discussed before, every property in PEI has its own PID, property identification number, which is usually anywhere between 3 and 8 digits. And that tells you it's like a serial number for that property. It's handy when you're doing searches for just about anything from surveys to deeds to maps to the history on MLS. Always use that PID number. But in the case of a new subdivision, all of those lots have the same PID number. Maybe you can explain that to us, Patty, in less than a half a sentence.
Yeah, half a sentence. One of the things I wanted to point out, though, with regards to the parcel ID number is please, 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 whether you're a buyer or a seller, take a little bit of ownership and responsibility to reconcile your tax report. Or if you're a buyer, make sure you have the tax report, the geo-ortho map, and the parcel ID number that's on the property feature sheet coincides and is the same one that's on that particular property. Because I've seen too many times, I've heard of, where a purchaser submits a contract agreement and they've got the wrong PID number on this agreement of purchase and sale. And I know many years ago, I heard a story on the island where somebody bought a piece of property that wasn't even the property they wanted. So the parcel ID number, which is why, like you said, Michael, it is on our MLS listings, is to ensure, and again, it should always be checked and verified and multiple times by the seller, by the listing agent, by the buyer's agent, by the buyer, and then the lawyers, once they get the contract on their desk, to make sure as they're doing title search, this is the right parcel. It is in your best interest to even include a little geo-ortho map. So there's no miscommunication when you're purchasing property. It is so important because that PID, like you said, is like the serial number for that property. So when a new subdivision goes on to the market and you've got multiple, there could be 2, there could be 10 properties in the subdivision that are listed, they do not get assigned their own PID or their own little serial number until that property conveys or transacts or transfers hands. At that time, when it does, you will see on your tax report, it'll say parent parcel. So the main parcel that this property was originally subdivided, that PID will be on, but there will be a new PID, which is what your property tax amount, whatever it's assessed at, will be for only your new parcel ID number. So they do not get assigned a new PID until closing day, and that's when the province sets that up. Province isn't going to assign a new PID to a subdivision that's been all subdivided out, again, let's just say 5 lots, until each of those lots convey and are now under a new owner's name and not the subdivider or the developers.
And one of the things you can do with that parent PID, or what we refer to as the original PID number, is you can take that and you can search for the survey, which will show you all the lots that are being subdivided off, because what you're going to do with the purchase and sale agreement in order to avoid any liability is you're not necessarily supplying an ortho or a map. You can if you want, but the survey would probably be even better and have it initialed because it also has all the measurements and size. And the other thing it would show you is if there's a waterfront buffer, which is a conversation for another day, but it will actually show you if your property touches the water or if there's a common area erosion barrier buffer in front of it. All of that stuff would be on the survey. And you know from past experience, purchasers are wonderful until there's a lawsuit and then everything's your fault. And it's always good to say, no, the purchase and sale shows the buffer, it shows the piece of land, shows the location of land, shows the measurements. The onus is, again, upon the purchaser because they acknowledge the existence of this survey opposed to just a map,
Yeah, and
which may or may not be accurate.
Yeah, and when you have the survey, get your client, if you're a buyer's agent listening to this, to initial the actual lot that it's their understanding. Also, you're not just writing the purchase and sale agreement with the total parent parcel or the original parcel ID. You are writing it as a P/O, which is part of that PID because they're not purchasing the entire. So here's the things to do to ensure clear communication. You are writing part of the parcel because that's all you're purchasing is part of that particular subdivision parcel. You're going to cite the lot number because there should be a lot number for the parcel that you are looking to acquire. And you should be initialing and including that survey with your agreement of purchase and sale. And that should hopefully help prevent any miscommunications or I thought I was getting this lot. My agent forgot and they just wrote the entire parcel number in, which means then I just got this whole parcel subdivision for $100,000. It doesn't mean that, but this is to make sure your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. These are all the little details that should be done.
And the lot numbers are usually like an 06-1, 06-2, 09-5. Usually it's the year dash the lot number. Because if you do have a larger subdivision, they usually only give you typically 20 lots. You have to sell half of those off before they give you phase 2, and then phase 2 would typically be done in another year. This, of course, refers to rural subdivisions, not necessarily subdivisions in the city, which would be applicable to a whole other set of rules. Patty, we're into 35 minutes. It's time to shut her down. You discussed the Toolbox Tuesday in our Facebook group in the intro. Did you want to cover that any more before we shut it down?
So the Toolbox Tuesdays, what you can expect there's a list of different things like a property disclosure statement. What is it? And should I be asking one as a buyer? And should I be filling one out as a seller? There's a whole Toolbox Tuesday on this. What to expect on closing day. I've had clients call me up and say, and they weren't my buyer clients because I have a whole routine and script, but to say, I didn't feel like I had a proper walkthrough. I didn't notice this. My agent didn't bring that to my attention. There's a Toolbox Tuesday on that. One of the ones that I was just going to showcase here is what is or isn't transferable when you buy a home. So there's a whole Toolbox Tuesday listing these items so you know as a buyer what to look for and what to ask for. So I can't stress like I did at the beginning. The amount of information, I wish when I moved to Prince Edward Island back in 2009, that there was some form of information, some resource site that I could have gone to, because I definitely would have done all my due diligence and research to acquire as much knowledge and information about the whole process. And there's everything from moving with pets to, once you're here, things that you can expect. Things that you can keep. I know I've seen questions out there, what kind of items when I move to PEI can I keep, like my phone numbers and things like that? Well, there's a whole Toolbox Tuesday on that as well. So thanks again for listening to another episode of the Michael and Patty Show, otherwise known as MAPS, PEI's podcast that helps guide and navigate you through the buying and selling and just a little bit of Prince Edward Island as well. We appreciate each and every one of you for downloading and listening to us and our little conversations we have every week.
Have a great day, everybody. Take care, and thanks for listening.
Stay safe this winter.